And now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, President and Principal of MDL Group, Mr. Hayim Mizrachi.
Thank you. Good morning. Happy to be here with everybody today. My name is Hayim Mizrachi. I am the President and Principal of MDL Group. We are a full-service commercial brokerage and property management company, local here to Las Vegas. Going to go through a bunch of stuff at the beginning of this, kind of to establish a baseline so that we're all on the same page as we go through our discussion today. First and foremost, I was born here in Las Vegas, raised here in Las Vegas. I'm a graduate of UNLV, very proud of that. I am a business owner. Prior to coming over to MDL Group, I was the managing director of NAI Global. NAI Global is a top 5 real estate company in the world, and they pioneered the concept of corporate services real estate, so working with companies on all of their real estate needs. So took a lot from that experience and brought the practice over to MDL Group. We help companies, some of the best known brands in the world, all the way to the local mom and pop that just opened their first business here in Las Vegas. So we'll cover a lot of best practices, tips of the trade and whatnot. I want to encourage you guys, this screen here has all of my contact information. I am fully accessible for chamber members for this webinar, for after the webinar. If you have a general question, if you have specific questions, my email address is there, the company phone number is there. I'm pretty accessible on social media, most active on Facebook. Just type in my name. I know it's hard to spell, but it's right there in the slide. So feel free to reach out and connect. And of course, I want to thank the Chamber for putting this on. This is an incredible resource, Chamber University. I've personally been a member of the Chamber ever since joining the workforce, and just incredible benefits. So those who are on taking advantage, good for you. Those who are watching later, also good for you. If you want, Danica mentioned you can ask questions, so don't forget about that feature. If you ask a question any way through, I'll take a look and answer it for you. And also, I can stay focused on what's important to you. I could talk about this topic for 3 days, but if there's something specific you want me to mention, let me know. So that's the intro. Let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about commercial real estate space, and specifically 3 decisions to avoid disaster. First one is don't go it alone. I'll talk about that, some of the logic behind why a business owner would try to go it alone and why in all practicality it's not a benefit for you. The second one, if you're going to hire an agent, don't hire the wrong agent. I'll get into some details about how not all agents are created equal, but a quick analogy, if you need a heart transplant, you wouldn't go and hire your nephew just because they're a medical doctor. You would seek the most qualified transplant surgeon or team. So if that would be your decision-making process for yourself, why would it be any different for your business? And the third one, my favorite one, don't get caught focused only on cheap rent. We're going to get into some detail and practicality of an actual transaction and actual analysis. There's more to it than just, hey, what's my rent? A lot of levers that we can pull. This is toward the end of the discussion, and this is where I believe you will get the most value and some serious value and knowledge about how a transaction actually works. So we're going to start by reviewing some really, really basic stuff. I think it's important so that we're all on the same page. So if you already know these things, bear with me as we go through the next few slides. Again, it's really important to establish a baseline for what we're talking about before we get into the depths of some things with some detail. So first and foremost, there are 2 types of transactions, acquisitions and dispositions. So an acquisition is I'm acquiring space or a building, so that could be a new lease or it could be a building purchase. A disposition, I need to get rid of something, so it looks like a sublease, or I'm assigning my lease, or I need to sell a building. So acquisition, disposition. And for the sake of the rest of this conversation, we will focus on acquisition, so obtaining a new space or a building. So the other thing that's pretty basic that we should talk about, if you're acquiring, you've got a few options. The two most common are, do I want to purchase or do I want to lease? It seems simple, but it's also important. Sometimes it's both. But how do I know? Is it better for me to buy a building or lease space? There's some fundamental questions you can ask, really to front the decision. First, what's my business's trajectory over the next 5 or 10 years? Am I growing rapidly? Am I in expansion mode? Or are we kind of leveled off and we're more stable? Second, can I afford a down payment? Or do I want to afford a down payment? Most commercial loans for property require 10 or 20% down of the purchase price. So that's about $100,000 to $200,000 on $1 million purchase, just to give you a sense. So can I afford that or do I want to put up that kind of capital? The other things, some on the more intrinsic side, is pride of ownership important to me and my business? Do I want a predictable mortgage payment versus a lease payment which could increase annually and also fluctuate with the market? Do I want to build equity for my future? And buying a building for my business is a vehicle to do so. And can I benefit from the depreciation? So those are just some kind of fundamental questions you can ask yourself. And if you're facing this decision, really you need what's called a buy versus lease analysis. And candidly, the buy versus lease analysis could be another Chamber University 30-minute presentation. So today, we're just going to focus on leasing space, not buying, just leasing space. So the next basic thing you need to ask, what kind of space do I need? Again, this sounds sort of obvious, but it's really an important distinction to make. There are 3 major asset classes for commercial real estate that businesses will use. And each of them has a different utility or different use. So the 3 major asset classes are office, retail, and industrial. And then getting into the 3 different ones and the 3 different utilities or the use of space, it's interesting to point these out. So for an office building, what are we doing with office buildings really? We're housing employees. That's where they go to work and to be productive. So as a commercial broker, when we sell the sizzle of office, we talk about things like security and finish quality, amenities for the employees, and parking ratios. Differently is warehouse or industrial space. So why do I use a warehouse or an industrial building? For things like manufacturing or logistics, housing, supplies, and material. So when I sell the sizzle of industrial space, I talk about what is the proximity of the building to a freeway? What's my turning radius for trucks to be able to move in and out? Does it have docks or grade level doors? What's the clear height? If I'm putting stuff in there and I want to rack all the way to the ceiling, how high can I rack? What kind of power? What kind of sprinkler systems? It's interesting, in an industrial building, I don't really care who my neighbors are. I don't care if I'm UPS and my major competitor, FedEx, is right across the street. I really don't. In a retail building, what am I doing with my space? I'm using my floor space to generate sales. So what do I care about? I care about demographics of the area, tenant synergy. In this center, what is the average sales per square foot? And in retail, I very much care who my neighbors are, so much so that I will look for specific tenants to locate next to because they will help me generate more sales. All right, so those are the basics. We've covered a little bit here. Let's recap kind of where we are and establish the baseline for going forward. So I need to acquire new space for my company and business. I know that I'm going to lease the space, and I know what kind of space I need, office, industrial, or retail. Cool. What now? How do I find this space? So I've been doing this for a little over a decade. I've been averaging, as a broker of a company, oversight of 200 plus unique transactions a year. And it's interesting for me, the behaviors of our clients, and they typically fall into three categories when they're looking for commercial space. Like most things these days, many searches start online. Or you drive around your neighborhood where your business is located and call on signs. And I kind of ask myself, why do people do this? And it's really because you're in the information gathering stage. You're really educating yourself. It might be, you know what, I think I want to move, or my lease is coming up. What are rates in the area? I'm not ready to talk to anybody yet because I really just want to get up to snuff on what's going on. The other interesting thing, if you are in the information gathering stage and you actually get converted into a decision in this phase, you are typically not being represented. What do I mean by that? So if you start your search online and you call some listing broker who's advertising online, or if you drive around your neighborhood and you call off of a sign, the person you're talking to on the other end of the phone is working for the landlord. And they are going to be working for the landlord's interests, not yours. So two cons with this behavior. One, you're speaking to somebody who is not representing your interest, and two, you're really getting limited information and you're seeing limited amount of inventory in the marketplace. The second behavior business owners typically go for, and this one makes me chuckle, typically they'll, you know what, I'm pretty connected to the real estate community. I know several realtors. Heck, I even know a few commercial brokers. I will call everyone I know. I will let them know I am in the market for space. I will create a frenzy because they will compete for me and my business, and that will produce an awesome result because I'm going to have 5 agents out scouring the marketplace working on my behalf. Sounds logical? It's not. And let me tell you why. In our profession, real estate agents are compensated 100% commission and 100% contingency, meaning if I don't close a deal, I don't get any compensation at all. So the best practices in our industry is to only work on transactions where you have a high probability of getting a commission. So think about that. Got 5 people out there looking for the market. I'm one of 5. What's my chance of actually getting this business? 20%. So how much effort do you think you're going to get from me? You see this little image? This is actually reality. It says, "This is you," the little sticky note on the computer screen. I just got off the phone with you. You told me you need 5,000 square feet of office in Green Valley, and you told me what you want to pay and when you want to move. Cool. I wrote it down. And, oh, by the way, I'm talking to 4 other agents. Awesome. You become a sticky note on my computer, and if something just happens to come across my desk, maybe I'll send it to you. That is the reality of this decision. The third behavior, hire not just an agent, but hire the right agent to represent your interest. Now, I have to mention the biggest companies in the world do this. This is their behavior. This is their practice, and for good reason. First and foremost, you have somebody representing your interests. Number 2, you get a professional who starts out facilitating this whole process with a needs assessment. They ask you questions that you haven't thought of because, again, we're doing this multiple times a year. You're moving your business, what, once every 3 years, once every 5 years? We're current on what's going on. We know the right questions to ask you to help you make a better decision. And number 3, and you're going to hear me say this a lot today, it's a free service. I'll say it again. This is a free service. Hiring an agent to represent you is free. So if this process is best practices for the largest companies in the world, why wouldn't it be your practice for your business? Compared to the first 2 behaviors that we saw, driving around, calling on signs, or searching on the internet, again, you're going to see limited inventory, and hiring the right agent will save you a bunch of time. We subscribe to many, many listing sites that give us a broader picture of the total inventory available in the marketplace. I can do a search in 15 minutes or 20 minutes and send you all of the available options. I just saved you 2 hours of driving around in your car and the frustration when you're calling on all these signs and nobody's calling you back. Okay, so again, we covered quite a bit. I'm going to pause here for a little second. Let's do a check-in. If you want to post a comment at this point or a question, go ahead and do so. Let me just kind of recap and say where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going. So we talked about the 3 typical behaviors of a business owner. We talked about the best behavior being hiring the right agent to represent your interests. What we're going to talk about next, how do I find the most qualified agent to represent me as a business owner and for the type of business I have in the space that I'm looking for? And 2, once I find this person, what should I expect? What's practice? What are they trying to get over on me? What are they not? We're going to get from this, after that, we're going to get into some specifics of an actual transaction to bring to life some of the value that we can provide behind the scenes. And then we're going to end with time for questions. Okay. I want to make this point. I think this picture does a great job. Not all agents are created equal. And at the risk of boring you with some more detail, the real estate division does not care if you hire your nephew who's straight out of real estate school, who has never done any transactions, let alone a commercial transaction. They don't care. A real estate license is a real estate license is a real estate license. Commercial agents, different than residential realtors, they will typically specialize in a product type. So there are office agents and retail agents and industrial agents, etc. They focus, they specialize in those product types. They get to know total market inventory, who the landlords are, where the available spaces are, where the opportunities are, where the pitfalls are. They specialize. So again, I want to reiterate, in the same way you wouldn't hire a doctor who just graduated from medical school to operate on your heart, you shouldn't hire just any agent to represent your real estate needs. You want to hire a professional and a specialist. So how do you do that? Give you a couple of practical first steps. 1, check into your network. Look on the chamber website for real estate professionals. But ask, when you're asking around your network, hey, John, I know you just moved your office. Did you use a broker? Cool. Who did you use? Was it an office broker, do you know? If you're looking for retail space, ask the question. Who is a good retail broker in the market? If that's what you need. The other way we talked about, and it's not a bad thing to start with, searching online. If you're searching online and you see a space that you like, whether it's a warehouse or a retail space, ask the agent that you're talking to on the other end of the phone, hey, can you recommend somebody who's a good tenant rep, good tenant representation agent for me? Now, sometimes, I'm going to guess, more often than not, they will tell you, oh, I give that service also. And that's okay. At least you're in the right place. You're talking to somebody who specializes in that product type. Another thing, I put my information at the beginning. I'll put it again at the end. Give me a call, email me. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Our commercial real estate community in Las Vegas is relatively small. We have a lot of talented, great, ethical agents. And based on what your needs are, if you shoot me an email or call me and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, this product type, I'll point you in the right direction. I'll tell you who to contact. The other way to find a great agent, guys, designations matter. Designations in our industry, they matter. These are professionals that have put forward not just time, but a lot of money and a lot of practice to earn these designations. Some of the most common ones are right here on the screen. There's CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member, SIOR, the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors, and the CLS designation from ICSE. That's the retail designation. SIOR is office and industrial. CCIM covers all of the product types. So go to the website, ccim.com, SIOR.com. Look at the directories. You can look by markets. You can read bios. That's a great place to start on finding a good commercial real estate agent. And just like designations matter, let me give you a few other tips if you're interviewing brokers to focus on some of your questions. Other things that matter. Experience matters. Don't be afraid to ask, how long have you been doing this? How many businesses like mine have you represented in the past? Can you tell me about a few of those? And let me just say this too, if you're talking to somebody who's only been in the industry for 2 years, 3 years, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the wrong agent for you, because workload also matters. So if you're talking to the seasoned vet that's been doing this for 20 years and you're a 2,000 square foot, 2-year lease kind of a person, I hate to break it to you, they're probably not going to spend a lot of time on you. They will delegate this assignment to one of their associates who's been in the industry for 2 or 3 years. But that associate, given that they have the right experience, the right workload, the right specialty, they will do a great job for you. So designations, experience, workload. Also at the end of this, I'm going to offer some things and services for chamber members only. One of the things we have are 7 questions to ask a commercial agent when you're interviewing them. If you want that, again, you can email or put in the comment box. We'll make sure we get that to you. Okay, I found my agent. Now what? What can I expect? So they're going to put this thing in front of me. It's called a representation agreement. They're going to ask me to sign it. Should I sign this? Short answer, yes. I'll give you some disclaimers and some nuance. But the short answer is yes. Signing this agreement is committing to the agent and having them commit to you. This is a common practice. If there's a bunch of legalese in what they're presenting, obviously have legal counsel take a look at it. Typically, these are simple agreements, and it really is to establish agency, is what we call it from a compliance standpoint, and to establish that commitment of representation. So it's clear to the marketplace who you hired as the business owner to represent your interests. And also committing to the right agent as a practice, this should make a smooth process for you, not create heartache and heartburn. So I found the agent, I'm going to sign the representation agreement. How much should I pay them? Again, remember I mentioned earlier, this is typically a free service. And 99.99999% of the time, hiring a tenant representation agent, you will pay them $0. Now, there are circumstances, like if you're looking for retail property on the strip, where the agent will ask the tenant to commit to their compensation. Why? Because landlords on the strip, they don't pay a commission. So if you are faced with this circumstance, it becomes a business decision. The fee should be very clear so there are no surprises. And for you as the business owner, it becomes a transactional cost. It's a cost of doing business. And let me tell you, there aren't very many brokers that can get you onto a strip property if that's what you need. The ones that have done it before and know how to do it, they earn every single dollar. Some of these transactions take up to a year just before the strip property will say, okay, we'll accept this tenant or we've created space for them. So they earn it. But again, it's a very clear discussion on what is the compensation, and then you test it against your business model if it makes sense for you. And the other question, so I signed this agreement, what if they don't perform? I would tell you that the representation agreement that any broker puts in front of you, it should speak to performance. And it should have a cancellation clause. So I'm the broker, here's my representation agreement. This is what I will do, and it's in writing. And if I don't do these things, this is how you as the client can cancel the agreement. And it'll typically say something to the effect of, this agreement is cancelable by either party with 30 days written notice. But let me make one point. If you do go down this path, and you do hire an agent, and they do some work, but they didn't do everything or didn't do it to your satisfaction, and you do decide to exercise your option to cancel, but then you move forward and sign a lease at a space that they showed you, do the right thing and let them get compensated for that. My colleagues in our industry, we work darn hard for our clients. Sometimes things don't work out, but when they do, again, we're 100% commission. Let them earn a living. We all live here in Southern Nevada, and I support that. Okay, so I've signed my agreement. We're off to the races. We go do a market survey of all the available spaces for you based on the criteria that we've uncovered during our needs assessment. I present all of the available options. I schedule all the tours. We look at the spaces. We narrow down the best spaces. and now we engage in a negotiation. So typically we do a round of letters of intent, we get back terms, and this is kind of where we end up. And the biggest frustration we hear from clients is, all these terms are different, I can't get to an apples-to-apples decision. How do I get to an apples-to-apples decision? So what you have in front of you here, this is a real-life analysis that we did for our client, the same kind of scenario. They had really three choices: stay where we're at and renew, but they were outgrowing the space, so 6,000 square feet, or lease option one, 16,000 square feet. This was really an office warehouse kind of a space. You could see my base rent here is 55 cents. The CAM, the operating expenses that I have to pay my pro rata share of, on top of that is 17 cents. So all in, call it 72 cents. Or, there's a perfectly good office building. There's no warehouse component, but that's fine. It's 9,000 square feet, but oh my gosh, base rent is 70 cents, CAM is 35 cents. So I'm looking at options here. One is 72 cents total. One is $1.05 total. Again, so that's per square foot per month, just to clarify. But if you look down a line or two where it says rent abatement, so this is an incentive that the landlord is giving the tenant to sign a lease. And in lease option one, they're giving them 0 months of free rent. But in lease option two, it's 5 months of free rent. So if you're listening and you want to play a little game, go ahead and put in the comments in the chat box, which deal do you think is better at face value? Lease option one or lease option two? I'll wait 3 seconds and then I'll go into the next slide and I'll tell you which one. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Let me break it down for you. So there's a lot I'm going to throw at you right now. Number one, you hired a broker, they did a needs assessment. In that assessment, they should have learned what levers are important to you that they can pull on your behalf. So one example, Hayim, my cash flow is tight, I can't afford any money for tenant improvements, I really need the landlord to pay everything. Okay, cool. I need to tell you which landlords in the market are willing to play that game. Just like not all agents are created equal, not all landlords are created equal, and we are a matchmaker on your behalf as much as anything else. So a little nuance, there are different types of landlords out there. There are private owners, public owners, REITs. All of those landlords play the game differently. And based on what your interests are, it'll help to match you with a landlord that is willing to play the game that you need to play for your business. All right, back to option A and option B. So we only looked at the previous slide, what's my base rent, what's my free rent, right? Those are only two of probably 10 levers we can pull on your behalf. And when we start pulling all these levers, it really comes down to make it an apples-to-apples decision, two metrics. What's my net effective rent, or essentially what's my price per pound that I'm paying for this space? And then what is the total consideration that I am paying for, in this case, a lease? So in lease option A, it's over 5 years, 60 months. In lease option B, it's over 5 years and 4 months, 64 months. But again, I'm bringing it down to two metrics, net effective rent and total consideration. So we look at lease option one, I'm paying 95 cents versus lease option B, I'm paying $1.35. So price per pound, I'm getting a better deal for lease option A. But then let's look at total consideration. $916,000 over 5 years versus $744,000 over 5 years and 4 months. My total consideration is $173,000 less for lease option B. Now let me pause for a second and ask, as a business owner, what can you do with $173,000 over 5 years or $38,000 a year for 5 years? You can hire another person, another staff person. You can put that money aside to save for your kids' college fund. And actually, you can upgrade your chamber membership and get more benefits. Had to throw that plug in. But this is real. These are real implications and the real value that a commercial broker can add in your decision-making process. Now, this is a very simplified analysis. I didn't throw in other nuances, like there are different types of lease structures. There's a triple net lease structure where you're paying a base rent and a pro rata share of the operating expenses for the property including insurance and taxes. There's a modified gross lease structure where you're maybe not paying the taxes, but you're paying everything else. And then there's a full service gross where you're paying one rent number and the landlord pays everything else, including your janitorial and your power inside of your suite. So when we're comparing different spaces, it can get really nuanced, but the job of your commercial broker is to make it an apples-to-apples decision for you, so as the business owner, you can make a better decision. Cool. So we talked about 3 decisions to avoid a disaster. Let's turn them into 3 decisions to create a successful outcome. Number 1, hire an agent to represent your interests. Number 2, interview and find the expert in the type of space that you need. And number 3, don't focus on cheap rent. There are other metrics. There are many levers we can pull. Bring it to apples, like net effective rent and total consideration. Okay, I've talked a lot. I gave you a lot of content. Hopefully it was productive for you. Time for questions. If there are any questions, go ahead and I guess Danica, the guy, either speak up into their phone or type it into the comment box, and we'll address those.
Absolutely. And again, if you do have any questions right now, feel free to type it into the chat box on the bottom left corner of your screen. Or if you want to ask a question over your phone, you can press *7 on your phone to unmute your line so you can ask your question at this time. I just wanted to also say, if you think of a question after this webinar, Hayim's information is going to be at the end of the presentation as well, so feel free to reach out to him as well. And you're available for any in-depth thing, everything that you've covered today, correct?
Absolutely. Like I said, I live here, I work here, I'm not going anywhere. I'm available anytime you have a question, general or specific, and we'll put my contact information in the next slide. And also, to availability, let's offer some value to chamber members. If you are facing a leasing decision, so if your lease is coming up for expiration in the next 12 months or 18 months or sooner, let's offer a lease assessment. So what does that mean? We'll review your current lease and structure. We'll do a quick needs assessment, and based on the interest of your business, we'll provide for you an actionable plan. No obligation to hire us. That's just, again, for chamber members, we're happy to do this. If you're considering buying a building or leasing, we'll do a buy versus lease analysis for you. If you're leasing now, it's a very similar start to the process. We'll review your current lease. We'll do the needs assessment, but we'll have you meet with a lender or a financial, have a financial assessment done also, and we'll give you a gut check on market variables. So if I want to buy a building, this is what it'll cost. Here's a gut check. Is this really something for you or not? And I talked about, we have a little resource, 7 questions to ask your agent. If you want that, if that's a value to you, shoot me an email, give me a call. Let me know, and we'll send that over to you.
Awesome. And your information
Yep.
on the screen. Here's
my info, email, call, find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter, but I'm less active there. But again, anytime after this, even if you're watching this after the fact and you need just advice, general question, specific question, feel free to reach out. It's been fun. Thanks for this.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for joining us on the call today. Thank you so much to MDL Group and to Hayim, and we hope to have you guys all back for Chamber U next week. Thank you.